Let's start today's episode.
Welcome back, Period Besties. Today we have one of my besties on. Meredith Canaan is one of my biz besties. We have co-hosted things. We've presented on stage together a number of times. We've flown to Australia and presented in Australia and spoke together a number of times. I'm very excited to introduce her to you all today. And one of the reasons that I wanted her, and she's actually been a speaker for Period Coaching School as well. So she has a real brilliant brain when it comes to business and marketing because she is a very neurodiverse individual. And so today we wanted to have her on because so many women are finding out in their midlife 40s, in that perimenopause window, they're finally getting a diagnosis of some neurodiversity. ADHD is probably the one we see the most in the media, but they're finding like in that time frame that those neurodiversities are really kicking up. The symptoms are getting more obvious and they're getting those diagnoses later in life. And Meredith, you were one of those people that got diagnosed in your midlife era as well. And we want to hear, how did that go for you? What was it like finally getting that diagnosis in midlife and perimenopause for you?
Okay, so in true neurodivergent fashion, my diagnostics actually, the ones that I got were in college and in the 90s. I'm a little old, right? They were spelling disability, reading disability, short-term memory problem. I have a visual processing thing called Irlen syndrome. I think at the time it was visual discomfort syndrome, right? So all of those things that I got labeled with in the 90s, because I had reading problems my whole life, right? I got stuck from being in all gifted classes to being sent to the dum-dum classes for reading. I had to do summer school in 6th grade. And yet my brain compensated and said I wasn't dyslexic. And so the reality is I don't have a formal ADHD or autistic diagnosis. But I think one of the things that's very important is that oftentimes with neurodivergence, chronic illness, and all of these things, that we are the ones that become aware of and go, oh, this is the thing that I have, and self-diagnosis is valid. And I will get up on my high horse and tell everybody that self-diagnosis is valid. And because today we're going to talk about advocating, and if you want a diagnosis, advocate to get it done, because it makes all of the difference in the world when you get what you need. And so my midlife awareness of the labels of what I identify with happened because of my kid. And in many moms, things that happen is the estrogen changes after pregnancy when we have kids, and estrogen and cognitive function are so tied together, right? It affects our mood, it affects the way our brain processes, it affects brain fog, short-term memory, and executive function. And so most neurodivergent folks notice the executive dysfunction decline. They start to notice it either falling apart or disappearing altogether. And so a lot of it happened when my little one was about 2, and I was chasing them around, and the preschool director is like, hey, I think you might need an aid or some assessments. And so that was the beginning of the process. And Stash was a guest in my Ultimate Mom Summit. The first year I did the Ultimate Mom Summit, I think, was the first time we talked period stuff in a summit. It was right before your period first summit, I think.
Yeah.
And we started talking about periods and all of that stuff. The following year, I focused it on higher needs, right? All of the things that are what we now categorize in the world of neurodivergent, ADHD, autism, defiance, right? It used to be there is still oppositional defiance disorder, ODD. They also see in autistic profiles now, people have what they call pathologic defiance disorder, or a profile that has PDA in it. And so in the world of it all, like as I was learning that stuff, I met these 2 ladies at Impact ADHD, now Impact Parents, and she was describing the whole ADHD experience about her kiddo. I fell to the floor bawling my eyes out in that sense of being seen, felt, and heard, going, oh my God, this is me. And then over the next couple of years, I helped build a membership called Bright and Quirky. And in her membership, it's about the twice exceptional, which is the like high IQ and other type of learning challenge, right? Very common in the autistic profiles. And so as a parenting program for that, I helped her, kind of get the membership established for the first year. And I heard the term stealth dyslexia from a guy named Dan Peters. I'm not sure he's the one that coined it, but again, one of those aha moments where I was like, oh my God, that's me, right? And now that is often where people have that high IQ, that brain that compensates so well and covers up some of the other, like you passing grades, you do enough, your reading tests aren't that bad. I went to an all gifted high school and I got in for my math scores. I think my reading comprehension was in the 60th percentile. So I've always known about the reading challenges, but the working memory, that is a woman, a female presenting human being with ADHD, right? Short-term memory disability is what we call one of the 6 areas, the working memory and information challenge. And it's big for me. So long story short, and then as menopause was happening and my executive function was just falling and falling, I then advocated for myself, got a psychiatrist and was like, I am 99.9% sure I have ADHD. Here's what I was diagnosed with in the 90s. Give me some medication. And he said yes. So there's the validation there. And so that can also happen is when you get to take a medication that helps you with something like dopamine challenges or other things, and it works for you, go, ha-ha, I was right after all. And so that's why I love our conversation for advocating, because it is such an important part of life for anything. And I think self-diagnosis is valid. And if you know that you are up against something and you find if a diagnosis makes a difference in your life, I say go for it.
Yeah. That's exactly the approach I took with my doctor when I was like, I have endometriosis. I need something. And she was like, okay, here's progesterone. You have endometriosis. Done. It's in your file. You are official. And I was like, no surgery. She goes, no, you know your body. You've been dealing with this for 30 years. It's in your file. You have endometriosis. Diagnosed. Done. Here's your progesterone. So sometimes going in with that, like, look, this is what is happening. This is what it is. And then having that conversation was like the most successful conversation I've had with a doctor in my entire life.
Yeah.
And I think, I know people talk about the fact that autism diagnostics are on the rise, ADHD diagnoses are on the rise, like all of this is on the rise. And the reason is a few things. One, they changed the criteria, right? According to the DSM-5, which is the diagnostic criteria, was updated in 2013. You used to not be able to have ADHD and autism at the same time. You now can. They recategorized things. They reevaluated what constitutes the assessments. So that's one reason why those diagnoses are on the rise. Two, social media. I will give 100% credit for social media because information and the era that we're in where people can find out and hear somebody describing their life from a lived experience, we all get to go, yeah, oh my God, that's me, right? I am in the same place with a condition that I am 99.9% sure I fit 22 of the 23 criteria. I might fit number 23. I'd have to have somebody tell me if my skin fits because I don't know if it qualifies. But it's thanks to social media. I go, oh, I have this. And I found the Ehlers-Danlos Society. I looked at the diagnostics and I went, oh my goodness, this is the cause of all of my neck and back and shoulder and hip problems that I have had my whole life.
Yeah.
Right. I have 52 years of undiagnosed lived experience and not knowing. But now social media gives us access. And so I think when people see themselves and they go, oh my goodness, that's the thing that I have that's making my life so crazy. We now have words and language. We now actually have the ability to go talk to the doctor or say, hey, I have these things. Here's this piece of paper. It says all this. Give me the diagnosis.
I remember the first time I saw on social media somebody use the ADHD belt it was a joke, right? They were unloading the dishwasher, and so they like strapped themselves to the dishwasher so they couldn't wander off. But from that day forth, I was like, oh, I need to strap myself in at the desk with my ADHD seat belt. Like, I need a seat belt on my office desk so that I don't go, oh, the dogs are outside chasing something. Let me go see what it is. Oh, there's a hummingbird at the feeder. Should I refill the feeders? I just, even just the one little window out of my office can get me up and out of my chair for hours on end. So I was like, I need to strap into my ADHD seat belt and sit down to work. And just that one little thing. But I was like, I so understand that vibe. I'm emptying the dishwasher and then, oh yeah, but I also have to do the cat litter. Oh, but I also have to do the food for tomorrow. Oh, and then there's like 20 things open on my kitchen that I finished nothing. So I was like, yeah, I get it. I get it. I may not have a diagnosis, but I can empathize with, understand, and get what that feels like. And I can see it reflected in myself. So I do have to say social media has been very enlightening. Even just for like, okay, well, how can I adjust so that it works better for me? Like, what can I do to help myself?
Right. How do you account, right? The thing I love about that belt. So I saw the ADHD belt with the woman tied to the dishwasher. I saw a guy with one tied to the lawnmower. I've seen so many of those things. And it's so true.
Yeah.
Those are accommodations, right?
Yeah.
How do we accommodate our lived experiences and the challenge that we have? And everybody can create accommodations for their lives when they understand what's operating in their brain or their body or whatever it is
Mhm.
that needs to be accommodated. And
Yeah.
so it's really about understanding whether it's your estrogen has just dropped because of the stage of perimenopause that you're in and it's affecting your cognitive brain that way. That's valid enough. Whether or not your symptoms fit under the diagnostic criteria or not doesn't matter,
Yeah, that's
right?
what I talk to with my clients in their menstrual cycle, right? Like your ovulation may be a different experience from what is the quote unquote normal ovulation because the hormones are so high that it can trigger. Also, when you're in deep luteal and you have like no hormones left, you may see that your executive function takes a dive as well. So, when we're even just talking about the fertile years with just the regular menstrual cycle, we're talking about what kind of accommodations you may need for your own neurodiversities, but also if you have zero neurodiversities, your menstrual cycle switches, right? As you said at the beginning, that as the estrogen drops, it does affect how your brain works and what you're good at and your strength. So, even just looking at your menstrual cycle as a way of going, okay, here's my strengths. Let's lean into that this week. And then next week, let's not do that because that's not going to be where my strength lies anymore. Is accommodating your life to make it easier, better, more functional to go along with your cyclical being.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question because this is what is really interesting. So many of my girlfriends, when they are early perimenopause, going to the doctor, getting diagnosed, right? What do you think was different from the 90s? Do you think that they were just not testing girls as often as they were testing boys? We were talking about being in junior high and high school and boys getting kind of more hands-on attention or being taken out of the room for testing and different things. And we could not remember anybody ever talking to us or talking to us about our attention, seeing if we need to get out of the classroom, and all of us talking about high functioning anxiety. And that's the only reason why we graduated high school was because we were so anxious. So that was kind of how it was showing up in us. But now that they're in their 40s, their brain just not working the way that it ever was. Like they can't handle the anxiety anymore. They're being diagnosed as ADD, ADHD, and then the aha brain, right? So I'm just curious, like you're deep into this. Was that the case? Or like what
Yes.
was actually happening with all
Well,
of us being left behind?
part of it is women present differently than, right? People of a female nature
Yeah.
present differently than in the male nature, right? My born male child is very bouncy and active and things like that. Now, the criteria for the diagnostics have changed, right? Some will say it's 3 core ADHD diagnostics, which is inattentive, right? Women have a higher tendency, I think, to hit the inattentive because we were the daydreamers, we were quiet, we got lost in space, but we weren't necessarily in the hyperactive presenting, which is the much more physical, right? My oldest is a combined type, and they are assigned female at birth. My youngest is assigned male, and his presentation is much more in the physical, but he's also the inattentive type. And so part of it was the way the diagnostics were in the 90s were different, part one. Part two, females don't tend to present as disruptive, right? There's also the other kind of societal way that we are more adaptive to fitting in and not getting in trouble and all of that stuff, just from our general feminine social structure. And so I think that played a part. And the schools don't necessarily want to test you. They don't want to give kids IEPs. They don't tend to want to have to provide the other types of resources. So unless you're making a fuss, causing trouble, right? And this is where advocacy comes in, nobody knows.
So how would you know? Like, how are they actually doing this now better, or are they not?
I'm going to give it to the social media, right? If the teenager is in school and they happen to have social media accounts, or they're watching YouTube shorts or whatever it is that they have access to, and they start seeing the content and they go, oh, I think that could be me, right? Then if they're willing to, they can advocate to their parents and say, hey, I'm really struggling. I think the anxiety is also the other key point in what you were asking before, is that of the female nature, most people have gotten diagnosis of anxiety, depression, etc., as the primary diagnosis, instead of what is underneath causing the anxiety, which is I'm anxious because my working memory doesn't work and I'm afraid, did I remember to grab that paper? Did I leave my dog outside? Did I X, Y, or Z? And then the anxiety kicks in when you're like, remember, did I do the thing? I will admit, I missed a vet appointment for my dog this morning. I forgot to, it rained, her paw's a little bloody. I made the appointment yesterday, didn't put it in my calendar. And at 9 something, as I was outside with her, I went, oh, I completely forgot. And I have to now, and this is the second time I have missed that appointment, right? It's that working memory is just,
yeah, if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist. If it's not in my calendar, I will not be there.
Same.
Yeah, I can see that so clearly, right? That cultural conditioning to be perfect, be quiet, and then not being able to translate that into, okay, but I do need help. This is not supportive. I'm not getting what I need, but I'm not allowed to talk about it either, because you, as women in general, we're not allowed to talk about a lot of things. So I can see how that could be, okay, now I finally see it in somebody else. I see it in myself. Oh boy, that just ramps up the anxiety even more, because now, oh my gosh, do I have to go talk to my parents about this? Or do, it's like coming out. Do I have to come out to my parents with ADHD or whatever? So I can see that. And I have heard the same thing from a lot of other women as you, where it was getting their kids the help they needed when they realized, oh, you know what, I could probably use some help myself, as it turns out.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing, there was something that it just, hold on, I'm going to find it. Working memory, come back. So in the societal thing, the other thing about ADHD as it presents for a lot of female types is, I don't know if anybody noticed, but I can talk really fast and I like to talk a lot. And this is the way my brain works. That is very common, is that we are talkers. Right? So our ADHD comes out as a verbal, here, let me tell you everything there is to know. And let me do it very quickly. You might have to take this podcast and slow it down a smidge, because I have a tendency to talk very fast. It is true ADHD nature. Our brains operate 40% faster than neurotypical folks. According to Dr. Ned Hallowell, we have Ferrari brains with tricycle brakes. And I love that quote because it's so accurate. He is one of the foremost experts on the subject. And it's a great analogy because our brains just go so much faster. And the autistic brains, they have 45% neural wiring on their brains, which is where the increased sensitivities come up, visual, light, sound, textures, food, etc. And so when people say that we are wired differently, we are wired differently. And so that overplay with hormones, also, it's all a matter of how they play together, which is why we see it more and more with the later diagnosed females.
Yeah. Which is also why it's important for hormonal therapy advocation at the same time, because it's not just hormonal therapy, it's also supportive of the neurodiversities. It's a double benefit, really, at the end of the day.
And the research is also starting to say that estrogen plays a huge part in cognitive decline and Alzheimer's.
Yes.
So having hormonal therapy, especially, it's why Alzheimer's rates are increased in the female population because of the lack of support in the hormonal therapy, right? Oh, you're going through menopause and it used to just be I think so that like a whiny woman, I think was the actual, like doctors used to write down on their thing, oh, don't worry, we have a WW in the other room.
Yes,
like,
I've seen that before.
How dismissive and disgusting is that?
Yeah, it's gross.
Yeah,
It's
so was it harder to advocate for hormonal therapy or for your ADHD stamp of approval?
I still don't have the hormonal therapy support that I could utilize. But I mean, I have now my journey, I've been advocating and trying, but I do have, my mom had endometrial cancer. My mom also has Alzheimer's, right? So these are the things I am up against. So I got some genetic testing. I haven't gotten the results back. I did try the estradiol cream because my biggest challenge, I don't know how graphic people want to get on your podcast.
Very.
Right? Like, I call it piranha vagina, glass, sandy, gritty skin. And I think it relates to, I think there's also kind of that overlap with this Ehlers-Danlos, because that has a lot to do with pelvic floor and connective tissue disorder and this whole thin skin, right? So when you talk about that deep luteal, that luteal drop, deep luteal,
yeah.
Oh my God, I'm about to kill somebody. It's so painful. It is so disabling. There are days I cannot work because it is so uncomfortable. And that estradiol didn't work. It caused bladder infections. I tried something else, but God bless. I want a patch. I want a pill. I want a something. So I'll keep you posted. I have an appointment next week.
You're like the perfect candidate for suppository, vaginal estrogen suppository.
No.
And
I will tell you why. Because of the high tendency for the bladder infections and the connective tissue, and or that was the problem with the estradiol. I kept getting bladder infections for no.
Because generally, when you have a lot of bladder infections, the vaginal supplement reduces it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
That's interesting
for you.
I am not neurotypical either.
Yeah.
So it's possible my female parts aren't either. I have a neurodivergent vagina.
No, that's really interesting because we do see, because estrogen suppositories don't do the same traits around the body, right? So you wouldn't get the same neuroprotective, but we do see a reduced rate in UTIs with them. So interesting that didn't work the same, but you absolutely, I would also, if you're neurodiverse, would want to see a patch or something so that it can get into that blood-brain barrier. The estrogen is one of the things that does make that journey.
Well, and I have just recently discovered that I do have one of those genes that makes me more likely to get Alzheimer's. So estrogen now moves up in the importance level of my future health.
Yeah.
So it's not just about getting through menopause. And right, I'm pretty sure I missed a period, right? I had a 50-day cycle. I think one over is like, I'm done. I'll let you know if it happens again, if one of them has retired, right? But I think, the advocating for what we need is such a powerful thing. All medical, like, it's interesting. I have all my bracelets on, but for those people who are watching, I have a bruise that is like 7 to 8 inches long on my arm. And it's because I'm a hardcore advocate that people don't take blood out of the middle of my arm, because every time they do, they have to stab me 3 and 4 times. This is the first ever time I've had an issue with giving blood from my hand. And I learned that somebody just accidentally stabbed right through the other side of the vein. But in general, I am a hardcore advocate because of the just veins that I have. I will not let people stab me in the middle of my arm where most people do blood draws. Yeah. Even when I have to get knocked out for my dental work, my dentist tried and it didn't work. And I was like, I told you so. Where's my discount? Right. I'm like, $7,500 worth of dental work since you're not going to be. I'm like, I should get a discount since I told you no. You did it anyway. And then you had to still move to my hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, God, that's so crazy. Yeah. And then the progesterone that will go with the estrogen. So it should help substantially with some of that. So I'm very, well, you'll have to come back and tell us how you got hormone therapy sorted out in the end.
Yes, I will get
I'm
something.
curious.
It's just, I think it's so strange that my doctor wanted to double check on the genetic side of things, which is great. I took the test 8, 9 months ago and it has not been sent on to my doctor. So hopefully somebody will get it there.
Yeah, I'm
Follow up,
kind of in
please.
that limbo too. I'm waiting for a test so that I can get my hormone therapy on as well, but I'm waiting for a test and then the results before I can get there. So, yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, it takes so long. How do you feel that in terms of where you're at with your health and ADHD and everything, where do you feel like you really noticed that shift during the peri to menopause transition? Did you feel like anything shifted for the worse or for the better? Or was it all kind of once you started perimenopause, you were like, oh my goodness, I feel this everywhere? I'm just curious if you noticed like a shift or change anywhere.
I think that thing that was the most noticeable was the skin and the issue that I'm having. I do get an occasional hot flash, but I also tend to have like tingly arms that are always cold. Again, I think this is more related to that potential Ehlers-Danlos diagnosis and or a B12 and folic acid deficiencies. But I think part of it is having women to talk about it. I'll tell you, that was the biggest aha. I remember a handful of Halloweens ago, one of my friends, and she's, I think, 3 or 4 years older than I am, and she was saying, oh, I got an ADHD diagnosis. I got medication for the ADHD, and I got hormone replacement therapy. And she's like, my life is fabulous. Right. And I was like, huh. And so it was that conversation that was like, okay, I need to start pursuing these things, because I was just talking to her. And then I had another biz bestie who had gotten their ADHD diagnosis, got the medication. And she's like, I got out of the car and remembered the things I was supposed to bring in the house. It was amazing. And I'm like, oh, I know exactly. And I was like, the medication can change your life that much.
Yeah.
And so I think the first conversation with my friend on Halloween was the biggest, like, oh, this is that menopause thing that people talk about. Because otherwise, I hadn't realized that part of that cognitive decline was related to the menopause, in addition to the undiagnosed or at least unmedicated ADHD.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I was just curious because I feel like I definitely remember when I was like, holy shit, like I'm in perimenopause. I knew I was in perimenopause. And then I was like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely in it. So I was curious.
I think the thing about hormones, like there's also that place where you go and retrospectively look at the way things had shifted, right? I have a great maternal age or whatever it is that they call me, right? I had my babies late, right? My oldest, I was 37. My youngest, I was 40 when I had my kids. And I, in retrospect, can see all the shifts and changes that happen. And I think having babies late and in those late 30s, early 40s, I think it probably kicked off the beginning of some of those menopausal things. People talk about pregnancy brain, and I never recovered, right? The lax ligaments, I never recovered. Like so many of these things. And I don't know if it's just because my age and stage and where I was. And so I think it was a very steady and slow decline until it got to the point where I was like, I can't think straight. I can't work. Right. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are actually new studies, because this is interesting to me as well, because I had my boys, I was just turned 41 a week before I had them.
Mhm.
And they're saying now, because a lot of women are having kids so much later in life, that a lot of them are going from fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, straight into peri. And there are major shifts happening much faster because of that. So it's interesting that you experienced it before they studied it, but you studied yourself. But that's what they're saying, is that it's changing the perimenopause game, because a lot of times 37, 38, you're in peri, but you're also maybe having your first or second child, or maybe not even at that point. So it's really interesting, the new studies that are coming out.
Yeah, and with my first, I had what I know is postpartum depression, but for me, it was postpartum anxiety. I was so paranoid, and I didn't realize that it wasn't normal. About like, for I think the first couple of months, I couldn't sleep without having somebody else in the house when the baby was there, right? Like, it's these strange nuances and things you don't think of. You're like, oh, it's a first kid, it's just a new mom. But my anxiety was through the roof. And I think it's the undiagnosed working memory challenges, right? Paranoid I was going to leave my kid in the car. Ridiculously paranoid. I would start being like, kid, hand out, and I have to talk my way through all of those things because there was such a cognitive decline. And I think that's where that postpartum anxiety came from.
Period Besties is going live and unfiltered this September. 1 week, 7 panels, and an absolute dream team of experts. We're talking Dr. Laura Bryden, Dr. Carrie Jones, Lisa Henderson Jack, and more, all showing up to answer your questions in real time.
No scripts and no shame. We're just going to get into real talk about your cycle and hormones. This is a once in a lifetime lineup, and it's completely free. Join us live the week of September 21st. Sign up now at the link below.
With the second kid, it was much easier. I didn't see it as much. And I think it's those huge hormonal shifts. And I think that might have been part of it, but I never got help. I didn't notice it. I didn't know that that's what I had until I was talking to somebody a couple years later. And that's where I think the kind of self-diagnosis is why social media is so helpful, because we can be so seen, felt, and heard in so many different ways and go, that's my experience too. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that was related to X, Y, or Z. And so when it's time to go ask for help, it is one of the hardest things that people do for so many people. And it's a skill set, right? To get our needs met, especially if you have a chronic health condition, if you live with somebody, chronic health, neurodivergent, the thing that we were talking about earlier in terms of creating accommodations, right? Accommodations is a fancy word for, I have a need that you don't think is normal, that you don't think is a need, and that you're going to judge that I need, and I need you to get it for me. That's really all it is managing your individual needs. And I think some people have no idea how to have that conversation. Some people have no idea to send an email, to do a thing. And if you have neurodivergent children, we spend so much time advocating for our kids in school, for help, in life, etc. My oldest also has a chronic condition, so I'm playing the game, and I don't know how many different directions. And so it's so important to identify, right? Like, and Stash set up her life with accommodations for the endometriosis, right? There's the, I think people probably know this about you, but there's the automatic reply on the emails. I'm in deep luteal, go away. I'll come up for air in 3 to 4 days, right? That's an accommodation. You have the water bottle, right? Your husband handles your needs as you, right? He knows when things come, he knows what to provide you, what to give you, all those things that make you feel better, right?
Yeah.
At some point, you had a conversation with him on what it was, and he was like, okay, I get the win-win, happy wife, happy life. I'll just give you what you need.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, there's a woman who is fighting for endometriosis to be a formal disability
Mhm.
so that you can get income because you can't maintain a job with endometriosis. Very few people can. So you have to go out there and advocate for yourself, and then you have to advocate through the system. So we have people who are advocating legally. You have to have people who are advocating medically. You have to have people who are advocating socially, like all these different spots where you're working to get those needs, accommodations, those things met. Not to mention just advocating for some freaking studies that aren't just, are women with endometriosis more attractive and how does it affect their partners? Because those are the two first studies that came out on endometriosis. Nothing to do about the woman or the pain or the
Oh,
endometriosis.
Jesus.
Right.
Oh my God.
And I think the thing that we have to think about is understanding, right? I think it's 6, 7 steps to get really clear, like, what is that thing that is disabling you, right? Which is why now not every need is to handle a disability or a challenge, but even I need the hot water bottle because the pain is so intense, or I have to take the day off, right? That is a need from something, right? So you have to understand where it's coming from. But most people need to understand. So here's the need that I have identified. Here's what I need provided for me. Here's the accommodation. But a lot of times when people go, like I said, some people are like, that's a really weird need and you don't need that. And you're like, oh, yeah? Yeah, I do. Right. So you have to let people know, okay, great. This is what it is. This is how it helps me and what it's providing. And when it comes to like a work situation, maybe it's I work from home with a hot water bottle and I lie in bed, right? It benefits you. Well, at least if you give me the work from home accommodation, I will still get something done.
Yeah.
Because if I come to work, I'm going to lie down on the floor and just whine and cry all day. I won't be productive. But you give me the accommodation to have that hot water bottle or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
That clarity and helping them figure out if you can provide this for me, this accommodation, it's a win-win.
It is. My dad invented work from home for the offices that he ran in upstate New York for Social Security for one of his employees in the 80s, 90s,
Mm-hmm.
because she had a child who had, I forget, it was multiple sclerosis, wheelchair, homebound,
Yeah.
low verbal skills, and she needed to be able to work because she needed her health insurance for her child,
Mm-hmm.
but she couldn't come into the office very much. And he thought rather than lose a really good employee, let's figure out how she can work from home. And so he invented work from home. He advocated through all of the government bureaucracy to get it approved, to get her done. And she had a work from home position because she was a great employee. She was still valuable. She just needed this accommodation.
Yeah.
Boom.
And your dad was brilliant to see the win-win.
Yeah.
I'd rather give her the accommodation, keep this fabulous brain, this employee who's got great heart, whatever it was that all of her
Yep.
fabulous qualities were, right? I
Yep.
want to keep her. It's a win-win for her. It's a
Yep.
win-win for me. And then once you can establish that, that's a really helpful thing to help you clearly identify it.
Yeah.
And the question that I think is super important for everybody is what do you need from me so that you can provide that for me?
Yeah.
It's a powerful statement. It creates the win-win relationship. It creates the I will help you help support me, right? How can I help you in the Tom Cruise thing, right? Help
Yeah.
me help you. It's
Yes.
that question.
It's like
How do
the
I help you help me? I need this accommodation, right? It creates partnership. And I think that's the most powerful thing. And then the kind of last thing is when you get the accommodation, when you get whatever need is met, that you acknowledge and appreciate the hell out of them, right? So I love this story. So Stash knows that I love my coffee. And my husband doesn't like the smell. So this is an accommodation. It may not look like it, but it's a combination. My husband absolutely hates the smell of coffee brewing in the house. It is one of those disabling smells for him. He can't be around it. It makes him nauseous. And when I had babies, I stopped drinking hot coffee anyway because I was paranoid I was going to burn them. So cold coffee it was, right? I've been drinking it ever since. And so he will come home from the grocery store. My husband does the grocery shop. Come home from the grocery store and plop the coffee on my desk while I'm working. I will stop and be like, oh, baby, thank you so much. Thank you so much. My son, when he was, I don't know, 3 or 4, used to go and get my coffee from the refrigerator and put it on my desk because he saw how much I acknowledged and appreciated my husband for coffee delivery. That last part of it is so powerful. When you thank and appreciate people, even for something as simple as putting a coffee on your desk, they want to keep providing more for you, right? It's that like reinforcing the powerful win. And that's what's needed in a world where we have to account for accommodations, where we have to get needs that people, you think, all right, wheelchair, right? My oldest kid is currently using a walker. So we had to have a meeting at the end of the school year to figure out there's an elevator at school, depending on where their classes are. Do they get to leave class 5 minutes early so they don't have to bust through the hallway with the walker, right? All of these types of accommodations for their health condition. You don't think about it until you have a condition that needs you. And the challenge with the neurodivergence and same with endometriosis, they're invisible. You can't prove them, right? But when some kid gets a prescription and can't see, you don't say, I don't care that you can't see the board. I'm going to refuse you the glasses. These are an accommodation that helps us see. It's as simple as that. It's a tool. And so I think we put a lot of meaning on stuff. And I think the invitation is, if life is too hard, accommodate it.
Yeah.
And get your needs met, right? Yeah. Don't judge them. I think that's the other thing. It's very hard not to judge certain needs. And that's where we get in trouble because society's like, no, you don't need that. And you're like, yeah, I do. Go away.
Yeah, I had that experience. We were staying at my mother-in-law, father-in-law's apartment, and he had a stroke. So there's handles in the shower and there's a seat in the shower, and I had my period. And I used those handles and I used those seats. And I was like, this is perfect. If you have endometriosis and you have to get off of the toilet, it is one of the hardest things that you have ever done in your entire life. But with a handle next to it, it's actually physically possible. And I was just like, oh my gosh, just imagine if we could have the accommodations necessary. And when we moved into this house, there was a handle in the shower. And it was something I noticed when we were first doing the walkthrough. And I thought, oh, that's going to be amazing when I have my period. That's going to be so helpful for getting in and out of the bath when I have my period. Just a simple little thing, but it was like, okay. And then I went back to a group of people with endometriosis that I belong to. And I was like, yo, if you can get a handle in your shower, a seat in your shower, and a handle next to your toilet, let me tell you the miracle of improving your quality of life when you have your period with those just small little adjustments. But something else that I really like that you and your husband do is you take care of each other, right? Your self-care is he takes care of your self-care and you take care of his self-care because you're not doing it necessarily for yourselves. It's not something that comes up in the executive function channel. So you're giving each other that like responsibility, but also that receiving, that acceptance, that allowing somebody to help you so beautifully without judgment for the other person, just going, hey, I got you, babe. And I love watching that happen in real life.
Well, I think the other thing that's also to acknowledge is that he and I have different executive function strengths.
Yeah.
So the areas where he's accountable, like he does all the medication reminders and he does all the CVS pickups and stuff and checks in with the kiddos. Hey, did you take your medication? We call him like the chief wellness officer in the house because he's really good at all of those rememberings. I am not so good at all of the remembering of the things, right? So, but I'm really good with all the paperwork and I'm really good with organizing the files and the binders of where the kid stuff is. And I remember all of the big details of here are the questions we have to ask at the doctor's office. I will write them all down for you so you have it in a nice little folder, right? Because he doesn't have that natural skill. And I remember long-term things, but I can't remember yesterday and today, right? So it's about finding those ways to partner and create that win-win and how we handle life, the universe, and everything. And so I think is powerful when you can have these conversations, especially about like all the things. I have to say, we have a shower chair. It is awesome. My big kid needs it. We have heart rate, autonomic nervous system disorder, and the heart rate spikes from being in the heat too long. So need the chair, need to turn off the water, can't stay too long, like all of those things. It's a whole new world. But there is some of that judgment that comes up when you're like, oh my goodness, I have a 15-year-old that has to use a walker, right? What's it mean? Instead of looking at it from the place of, can they walk a certain distance without it? Yes. We got a disability placard for the car, right? We only use it when the kid's in the car, right? And when we know we have a day where there's a lot of walking, because there's no point in burning them out and not being able to enjoy something. And yeah, and I think that's the other thing. Like once you get an accommodation, once you experience that shower chair, you're like, oh, and they have all different kinds, right? We got one delivered to my parents' house when we were there for the winter holidays. And my parents got one that was like even better than the one that we have, that was kind of like 3 little compartments. You put the stool in it, but one leg is outside the tub. The other one is so you can kind of sit on it and slide your way in. So it's very different. So
Nice.
yeah, and you're like, oh my goodness, how simple is this accommodation and what a world of a difference it makes.
Yeah.
That's where you want to look at stuff.
And I like that it's like accepting the accommodation. I think of my dad being stubborn and not wanting to accept that because he feels like he should be able to do something. And I'm always like, why would you not just sit on the chair? I'm like, do whatever makes your life easier. So it's interesting. I'm going to have him listen to this episode.
What's interesting is you talk about accepting the accommodation and kind of backtracking. Like, I remember the stage at which I could no longer wear tampons, and whether that was the first sign because of the challenges and where my menopause challenges live, right? That was probably sign number 1. And I remember the introduction of the period panty by my biz bestie, Miss Stasha, right? I haven't touched a tampon since, right? And I think that's an accommodation.
Yeah.
I think that was the first thing that was like, oh, A, there's an alternate thing out there that I didn't know about. And B, oh my God, it makes the world of a difference. I will say though, like in the conversations when you go to the doctor and they're like, how much has your period changed and all this stuff? And I was like, I don't know. And it wasn't until I couldn't find a clean set that I had to use a panty liner because like I hadn't done laundry. No, I don't have executive function challenges at home. I don't know what you're talking about. But that I was like, oh, it is lighter because the period panty is the inside lining is black. You're not really noticing it as much. So, right, accommodations, this is the hill I will stand on and be like, get every accommodation that you can think of.
Yes.
And I don't even think about like even simple things like my mom has these rubber things that help you open jars. Guess what? It's probably the Ehlers-Danlos, the connective tissue disorder, why we have weak grip strength, right? I have 3 different things that helps me open jars. Right? And so I think adaptive accommodations in any way that you can get them.
Yeah.
Get them.
And they're helpful for the whole world. This is the thing that I also will stand on this hill because say, all right, for example, a wheelchair ramp goes in a building. Okay, great for people who are stuck in wheelchairs. Great for the person that broke their leg last week but normally plays rugby. Great for the person who has bad knees and can use the stairs, but they hurt more. Great for the person who has endometriosis and is pain that day, and stairs are just a little harder than a ramp.
Great for the mom who has a double stroller
Yes.
because they had twins.
Yes. So it's
Right.
like you put these accommodations out there that are maybe for one specific thing, but it turns out it actually benefits enormous amounts of people, maybe temporarily, maybe permanently, but what, so all these accommodations that we put out there in the world actually may end up helping us down the line at some point. And it's just, you can think of it as just self-preservation for your future, but it also helps so many more people that you didn't even think about in the original, like, let's
Right.
do this.
The place where the sidewalk dips down so you can take your stroller and cross, that is because of wheelchair accommodations,
Mm-hmm.
because those were fought and won for,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so many people benefit from them.
And
Yeah.
then it
Right.
made it so easy for me to skateboard to my car in downtown LA that was like 10 blocks away because that was the only place I could afford to park it. But yeah, that's exactly it. That's advocating for yourself. Here's my nugget from today's conversation. Advocating for yourself is not only good for you, it's good for everyone that comes after you. So if you can't advocate for yourself for whatever socialized, I feel weird reason, advocate for the person that's coming next. If that's really where you have to go, advocate for yourself, if only to help the next soul down the road.
Mhm.
Yeah, beautifully said. Makes so much sense though, because we all benefit, you know.
Absolutely. I have one more question for you before we go into the lightning round and all that good stuff to close up. But I would love to hear from somebody who has several neurodiversities and a cycle and a life and family and whatnot. What is your self-care? What is something that you do that is solely for you to help take care of yourself in the best way for you?
Binging television shows, even the ones that I rewatch. So I have two kids with autism diagnoses, and I have no idea where the autism probably comes from. For those of you that are listening and not watching, I have fingers pointing at my face in the very subtly. So I have comfort shows. I just rewatched, what is it? I just rewatched Yellowstone.
Say Buffy.
No, Cap and I are currently, my husband and I are rewatching Supernatural together. So we have the shows that he and I rewatch. We did all of Buffy and Angel just before we switched to Supernatural. And with the very devastating loss of Anthony Head, it might be time to watch it again because he was our generation's dad, right? To so many people. And my big kid said it was time to rewatch Ted Lasso. So my biggest form of self-care is Audible. I don't read with my eyes and I don't judge myself. Anybody who says Audible isn't reading and audiobooks for their children, that was the first accommodation I got. In the 1990s, I went to Florida State and they had a great program for accommodations. My history textbooks, some kid got paid to read my history textbooks to me on a cassette tape.
Ooh, that's awesome.
Early 90s, right? Because of the reading disabilities.
Yeah.
And so I love an Audible. Like I said earlier before we started recording, like I just finished one series. I can consume a solid book in a given day or so. I need to listen to something and then do something with my hands.
Yeah.
Right? I had to clean. So a good solid 2 books will get me through the cleaning of my house. I'm a domestic disaster, right? That is where my neurodivergent shows up the most, is that my house is a mess. I don't have organization as a skill. I can sequence like nobody's business, but unless it's color coded, I can't figure it out. Self-care. The other thing is I have a 6 to 8 week mani-pedi with my best friend, Natasha. And that was one of the first needs conversation I had with my husband, like this whole accommodating, right? It's the need of the socializing. In addition to, it's nice to have pretty nails. Unfortunately, I had to paint cabinets, so I just have clean nails. But I just one a week ago, and I ruined fast. But my toes, I have rainbow. If anybody wants to see my pretty rainbow pride toes, it's Pride Month as we are recording this.
That's right.
And I have a trans child, so I am 100% an advocate. But so that's another big part of my self-care. And the weather is lovely. I have these lounge chairs outside. And so 5 minutes outside in between things in the air, I had a very interesting chat with a squirrel this morning and listening to the animals I love. I'm a huge animal person, as many neurodivergent folks are. Sometimes we like the animals more than we like the people.
Same.
Right? So that like 5 to 10 minutes, sun on my face, feeling the wind. I am also, my husband likes to call me the Southern barefooted hillbilly because I do love to walk around barefoot outside. I rarely put my shoes on, even though we have a tree that spits out prickle corns all over the front lawn, but I do love a good barefoot in the grass. That is also, I think, part of my self-care. And I think those are my big things.
I love it. Those are great.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah, I don't understand the audiobook not being a book thing. Like, I can't hear things and retain them. I need to see them to retain them. Does that make me abnormal because I need to see them instead of hear them? And then if you hear things better than see them, I don't understand why either of those are better or worse or normal or not. Like, that makes no sense to me. Like, it's just how you retain information.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
like your
Well,
astrology. It's just how you, it's like there's no judgment. It's just how you operate in the world that day or how you retain information better. I don't understand that. Audible, go for it. If Audible works, do it. I don't understand why that's a weird thing, but
and I think it's one of those like judging your needs, right? It's almost when parents say reading the book to your kid isn't as good as if your kid reads it themselves. And I remember my dad saying that when I was younger, I had a huge vocabulary because I'm such an auditory person, and my parents always just spoke to us like adults. They never changed their vocabulary when we were around. And so I had a huge, huge vocabulary as a kid, and my parents read to me quite a bit, much longer than my sister needed somebody to read to them. And then when it came to reading in school, my vocabulary dropped because I just didn't process it. And again, I went for years with bad reading scores and the dyslexia, right? I would say it's stealth dyslexia. It is a high IQ brain compensating so that the dyslexia doesn't show up.
yeah.
And a lot of people don't find that till they get to college. And that's when it starts to show up, the undiagnosed combo of things.
Yeah.
But people judge, right? I've heard people say you're reading to your kids too long. It doesn't count. And I think, bah humbug, if you're an auditory processor, why not? We read every single Percy Jackson book to my youngest. And I think we read the last Harry Potter book to my oldest. My oldest, it reads like 10 times. They're hyperlexic with their autism, which means they are like a huge vocabulary. They read super fast. It's in their super skill set.
Yeah.
Not in mine. Reading is not in mine.
Smart kid though, for sure. I mean, having conversations, it's like, wow, I'm talking to a college kid at this point in nowhere near college. But yeah, absolutely. Okay, we have to wrap things up here. So before we go into the lightning round, tell us where people can find you and about your free gift.
All right. So since we were talking about accommodations and advocating, you can get an advocacy guide. It's called the Guide for Advocating for Accommodations. Really fancy name. And my name, Meredith, I think it is spelled the same way that Meredith Grey spells it from Grey's Anatomy. My last name is one that people often get wrong, which is Kanan. And so it starts with can because I can do anything. And then it has a double A-N. So meredithcanaan.com/advocate. And that will get you the Advocating for Accommodations guide. And then all of the rest of my stuff, I have an everything page. If you go to meredithcanaan.com, there is an everything page on there that you can find most everything. I'm sure there's something forgetting, but almost everything.
Well, and we'll put all the links in the show notes so you can just scroll, click, and pop on over real easy. All right, lightning round time. Just a couple of questions. No wrong answers, obviously. Go with the gut. What is your favorite junk food?
Coffee. Is coffee considered junk food? Is it considered food?
I don't consider it a junk food for you because that's what you've been medicating for ADHD with your entire life. It's just like
right.
a low
it's fuel
dose
for my business. Okay. Favorite junk food. Hot, fresh, now Krispy Kreme donut. I grew up with Krispy Kreme in the South. In college, there was one really close to where I lived at Florida State in Tallahassee. And my son is donut obsessed as well, my youngest. And I love a hot, fresh Krispy Kreme. I think does that count as junk food?
Yeah. I saw him in Costco the other day and thought of you.
Well, and anybody who has children, you can trade in A's at Krispy Kreme when they get their report card for a donut for every A. So it can help motivate your children, especially my little one who loves donuts.
I'm curious about this one. What is your favorite TV series?
Buffy and Angel. Think I have to think about that one. I own them all on disc. I love everything about them. Yeah, we have all 7 seasons on disc of Buffy and all 5 seasons of Angel. And my husband and I watched them as they aired periodically every couple of years. Buffy the musical is one of my favorite episodes. I have the CD and the album for that as well. Huge fan.
Yeah, hands down. Easy peasy. What's your household item that you cannot live without?
My laptop. I mean, household item. Is that what you mean? Like, I mean, I don't know if that's a household item or if that's an office item.
It's in your house. It counts.
A remote control to my TV. Wait. The remote control to the light and the fan is pretty awesome.
Yeah. Our remote control light for the bedroom is probably one of my favorite household items.
I mean, and I have a select comfort bed. That is a pretty solid, right? I love that, right? It is my second one. The first one I got right after I got divorced. I told my dad I was going to attract a very tall man. And so I got myself a California king. And then my husband showed up. He's 6'4". So I believe in the power of magic and manifesting.
I love that. Do you nap?
Not really. I have sleep disorders. I would say it's a good part of my neurodivergence and or the Ehlers-Danlos and or who knows, menopause. It is a very rare thing. I remember when Stash started talking about napping when you have your period. I think that was when I started to give myself permission. So if I start to get a migraine, and it's usually, that 2 or 3 days before my period hits, I give myself permission when the exhaustion, and I also get insomnia in my cycle right before my period. So it's probably that combination. So I do give myself permission, but in general, I am not somebody who can just fall asleep in the middle of the day. I am not somebody who can go back to sleep after I'm awake. My brain kicks in. I can't fall asleep, right? Neurodivergent. I can't fall asleep without something in my ears. I have to have a book. I have accommodated my losing my place. I hit the clip notes on my audio as I start to listen before I go to bed. So I know where to restart when I get up in the morning.
Yeah.
Things like that. No, don't really nap.
Yeah. I have read that resting is really good for neurodiversity, just being horizontal and taking a moment, not to nap, but just to be horizontal to reset the nervous system briefly can be really helpful for different neurodivergent, not all of them, but for some of them.
Yeah. It's why I love the lounge chair outside because I can lie out there. I get the sun, I get the breeze. It is a nice 5-minute nervous system reset.
Yeah. That's something I've started doing. I can nap in deep luteal and menstrual, but in the follicular phase, I have started doing that where I'll either go lay in the hammock if it's nice outside or on the couch for just a few minutes just to reset the nervous system. And I do feel like when I come back to sit down at the desk, I have better focus and attention than if I had just plowed through or, done something else. So I think that's a really interesting answer and I quite like it.
And I would not be surprised, right? The hammock has that swaying and flowing and rocking motion. So that probably puts your nervous system right in ooh, yeah, back to the womb, back to the rocking and the shushing of the babies and all that stuff that
it's nice. We all use it. Everyone uses it. When even guests that come to stay are like,
I'm a little jealous. Now I want one for myself. Actually, I was just talking to my husband. I grew up in Louisiana and we had the most awesome porch swing. And so one of my walk and talk buddies, she and I were sitting on our porch recently, on the front porch recently with the dogs. And I was like, I need a porch swing. So a porch swing, hammock, either one of those would make me very happy.
Yeah, good. All right, last question. Your favorite vacation spot?
A beach. In general, I grew up, my parents have a nice condo in Destin, Fort Walton in the panhandle of Florida. And the sand in Destin and Panama City is this white silt, beautiful. The water is the right temperature, it is clear and beautiful most of the year. I think a vacation at the beach might be better without my parents. Who said that? Wait, shh, don't tell them I said that. No, but a nice beach vacation with a whole lot of nothing planned. That's what I'm looking for to next. But I do love an adventure and to explore something different. So, there's the difference between, there's something you said in the question was relaxing vacation, or you said vacation. There's favorite. I'm like, because there's the difference between a family trip and an adventure and a vacation. I like to make that distinction for many, many people. And so I think that one's an important one. Vacation is where you don't have to do anything with anybody else's agenda. Hey, that's I think part one of that one. And there's a whole lot of downtime and whatever that looks like for you. Downtime and like filling your buckets back up. So
I love that. I think that's a great distinction to make for sure.
I mean, I have to say, like, my parents are quite lovely. They're actually coming for Father's Day and they're staying an extra day so that my husband and I can staycation at the pool at the hotel that they're. Nice. So we can have that downtime by the pool and enjoy ourselves a couple blocks away. So.
Oh, that sounds really lovely. Love chatting with you. Thank you so much for joining us. I learned a lot, and now I have different appreciation for my friends who are learning all of these new things about themselves. So I feel like I learned a lot of good tidbits that I can pass along to them. And obviously I'll share this episode with them too, but it just helped me help them. I really feel like this is going to help so many people. So thank you so much.
Awesome. It's such a pleasure to have that you had me. I know Stasha and I could talk for 2.5 to 7 hours straight. So it's amazing we kept this under 4 hours.
I said that's the only challenge we're going to have today is keeping this within a decent time limit.
We could talk forever, and we usually do. So
yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming on. We'll have to have you back again when we get you get some more information and we can hear out your whole story on the hormonal therapy and how it works out and everything. We'll have to hear more about that. Thanks to everyone who's listening. Question, comment, anything that you want to hear more about, please let us know. Check out everything Meredith was sharing in the show notes, and we'll see everybody in the next episode. Bye for now. A big shout out and thank you to our sponsors for today's episode, Period Coaching School and Katie Bresek Wellness.
Thanks to you, our favorite bestie, for listening to the Period Besties podcast, where no topic is TMI. And of course, share this episode with your besties.
Remember to leave us a 5-star review, nothing less than the best for us besties, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
You can follow us on Instagram at Stasha Washburn and at Katie Bresek, or email us at periodbestiespodcast@gmail.com.
Check out more about us at katiebresek.com and periodcoachingschool.com. And of course, check the show notes for free goodies and extras that support this episode.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye for now, besties.